Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Second Take Cinema, coming at you from the glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. As always, I am your host, Jamie Evans, joined as per usual by my tag team partner, Rory Jocelyn.
Rory the Randy Man Savage!
And today, we are going back to the yon year of 2008 as we give a second take to Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler. The Wrestler is a 2008 American sports drama film directed by Darren Aronofsky, written by Robert Siegel, starring Mickey Rourke, Marissa Tomei, and Evan Rachel Wood, amongst others. It was made for a budget of $6 million and made $44.7 million.
It was made for how much?
$6 million.
Wow, that's actually cheap for a production of its era.
Yeah.
It's very indie almost.
And made $44.7 million.
Well, I mean, the three actors you mentioned are pretty much the only main actors in it. There's not like there's like every other actor is really just sort of a guest appearance almost.
Yeah.
Well, they're there for a scene or
There's
one
no
particular.
names, is there?
Yeah, there's the guy who works for example, or a couple of the other wrestlers, but most of them are just like they appear and then they disappear.
Yeah. The Wrestler received almost universal critical acclaim, and on Rotten Tomatoes currently has a score of 98%, with an average rating of 8.4 out of 10, and it was given a Golden Tomato for Best Drama of 2008. The site's critical consensus reads, Mickey Rourke gives a performance for the ages in The Wrestler, a richly affecting, heart-wrenching yet ultimately rewarding drama. Todd McCarthy of Variety said, Rourke creates a galvanizing, humorous, deeply moving portrait that instantly takes its place amongst the great, iconic screen performances. Ben Mankiewicz from At the Move, or Mankiewicz from At the Movies, said, to put it simply, this is the best film I've seen this year. Although The Wrestler was not technically in Roger Ebert's best film list of the year, he included a note at the bottom of his review saying, The Wrestler is one of the year's best films. It wasn't on my best films lists for complicated and boring reasons. Prominent wrestling figures have commented on the film. During an NPR interview, Aronofsky remarked on WWE chairman Vince McMahon's feelings on The Wrestler. We should note
Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
We should note that Vince McMahon is actually no longer chairman of WWE.
Yep, and for good
the
reason.
The company was bought out by TKO. But Aronofsky...
Was that the only reason? Didn't he get done?
It was
for a
done
bunch
because of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Aronofsky said, Vince McMahon saw the film and called both me and Mickey, and he was really, really touched by it. It happened a week ago. We were very nervous, wondering what he would think, but he really, really felt the film was special. Having his support meant a lot to us, especially to Mickey. WWE Hall of Famer Bret the Hitman Hart, who was a multi-time world champion in both WWE and WCW, enjoyed The Wrestler and applauded Rourke's clairvoyant performance, but called the film a dark misinterpretation of the business. He asserted Randy the Ram Robinson was a main eventer who sold out Madison Square Garden. So was I. Although the film speaks superbly to the speed bumps all pro wrestlers navigate, I'm happy to report most of us don't swerve off the road quite so severely. We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, I think you've got a few stories that maybe speak against that.
Yeah. WWE play-by-play commentator Jim Ross called it a really strong, dramatic film that depicts how people who are obsessed with their own lives and their careers can self-destruct.
Yeah.
Former WWE and TNA World Champion Mick Foley enjoyed the film, saying, "Within 5 minutes I'd completely forgotten I was looking at Mickey Rourke. That guy on the screen simply was Randy the Ram Robinson."
Yeah.
And WWE Hall of Famer Rowdy Roddy Piper was said to have been highly emotional after watching the screening of the film. Aronofsky said of Piper, "He loved it. He broke down and cried in Mickey's arms. He was so psyched that this story was finally being told."
Well, he does sound like he doesn't agree with Bret the Heartman Savage.
Bret the Hitman Hart.
There we go. I don't know these wrestlers, by the way, so anyone who goes, Rory, you don't know. Apart from Vincent Kennedy McMahon. That's only because you keep saying it to me. Yeah. That's now become a thing.
And it's become a recurring joke, hasn't it? Along with the "It was me all along" Austin.
Yes.
And for anyone who's interested in what wrestlers thought about the film, there is actually a special feature on the DVD called Wrestlers Roundtable, which has... Oh, sorry, it's not on the DVD, it's only on the Blu-ray copy, I'm afraid. In terms of awards, unfortunately and surprisingly, the film did not win either of the Best Actor Oscars it was nominated for.
No, it did win a BAFTA for it, though.
Mickey Rourke was nominated, but I know he lost to Sean Penn for playing Harvey Milk in Milk. Now, I haven't seen Milk, but apparently that is also a very good performance.
Yeah, I'd love to see... I haven't seen it either, but...
No.
I don't know why. I know it's the guy's surname, but there's something about the name Milk.
Weird,
for a film, I'm like, I don't want to see a film called Milk.
She lost to Penelope Cruz for the film Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Oh, that's the worst film ever made. That's actually...
What, worse than Man of Steel?
It's on par. They're on par. Yeah, no, Christy Wanky Barcelona is awful. Honestly, honestly, I can't. That film is... I'm not going to serendipity today, but that film is honestly awful. It's one of the worst films I've ever seen.
Yeah?
Yeah. It easily sells... Like, no, I can't stand it. If you're going to make a film, make it about something.
Yeah. So as we can see, very critically lauded. And we're going to talk about this film in just a second. But first, let's get ready to rumble, because it's time for the quiz. I've predicted that today's episode is going to be a pretty heavy one, and as a result, I decided the best thing to do would be to keep the quiz light.
Okay.
Because I think the rest of the episode is going to be quite intense.
Yes.
So today's quiz...
It's not really a film you can take lightheartedly.
No. So today's quiz is all about films starring wrestlers.
All right. I'm going to be terrible at this.
Yeah. No, I've tried to keep it to ones that... I reckon you can get at least 5. I reckon you can get at least half. I've kept them to fairly popular ones.
Shazam? Oh, no, he was a professional footballer, wasn't he?
Shaq's a basketball player.
Is he?
Yeah. Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was, wasn't he?
I tell you what, you're confusing. I know what you're confusing.
Because of Shaq Fu.
No,
that's why I'm confused. I was like, he must have done some fighting, no, he wasn't. He was basketball.
I thought you were saying Shazam because Shazam is the arch enemy of Black Adam, who is played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh no, I had no idea.
Okay. Question 10, Rory. Nice easy one. You'll get this one. Macho Man Randy Savage played which character in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man?
Bonesaw is ready.
Bonesaw McGraw, that is correct.
Thank you very much for giving me an easy one to start with.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go downhill from here.
Question 9. Or 2. I don't know why I always do them in descending order. Name the wrestler who starred in John Carpenter's 1988 sci-fi action movie, They Live, and had a 10-minute fight scene with Keith David.
Which was amazing. Can I name Keith David instead? Because I remember that name.
I've literally said this wrestler's name in the bit where we were talking about the reception of the wrestler.
I figured you might. And I wish my memory was good.
Okay, you might not get 5 then, because this is what I considered one of the easy ones.
Yeah, it is. Here's the thing, it is an easy one. I watched this film, I bought it, you showed it to me. Film. It's a great film, and this guy was quite good in it, and the 10-minute fight scene was hilarious. And now his name has just gone straight out into the ether. It's not Macho Man Randy Savage. It is...
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, go on.
Rowdy Roddy Piper.
That's the bastard. Have a name I could remember, Rowdy Roddy Roddy.
Question. Okay, this is the hardest one.
Hulk Hogan.
Because this one doesn't really rely on your knowledge of movies so much as your knowledge of promotion for movies.
Oh, damn.
To promote the wrestler, Mickey Rourke knocked out which wrestler at WrestleMania 25?
This is going to have to be a guess.
So to promote the film, Mickey Rourke did 2 TV interviews where this wrestler, who I'll give you a hint, they're almost always a villain. It's a very villain
That's what I was going to ask, if I can know if they're a heel or the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're heel.
They basically slagged Mickey Rourke off a load in these interviews, and then Mickey Rourke turned up at WrestleMania 25 and knocked them out.
Right. It's not going to be one of the big names. So, see, I asked if they were a heel or not, because that would shorten it down, but the problem is I don't know sod all about wrestling, so it doesn't really help. All right. No.
It's a name you'll know, I think.
What year was it? 2000?
WrestleMania 25 would have been 2009.
2009.
So this film came out in 2008, and then the WrestleMania 25 was in early 2009.
Bret Hart. I'm just going to guess Bret Hart.
Not a bad guess, but I'm afraid it's not. It was Chris Jericho.
Oh, man.
Next question.
Yep.
In Rocky 3, Rocky does a cross-sport charity match, boxer v wrestler, against which iconic 80s wrestler?
I'm going to guess Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan is correct.
Nice.
And my God, do you realise how small Sylvester Stallone is when they get in the ring together?
Hulk Hogan is quite a big man, isn't he?
Yeah, which you don't realise so much in wrestling because they're all big men. And then you see him next to Sylvester Stallone and you're like, fuck me. Okay, we'll just stick with the Hogan theme now.
Okay.
Next question. Complete the title of this 1991 Hulk Hogan movie, Blank Commando.
This is the one where there's the footage behind him when he's riding the bike and someone throws the dog into the water.
Yeah, it is.
Nanny Commando, isn't it?
No, you're crossing 2 Hulk Hogan films. He did one called Mr. Nanny, and he did Suburban Commando. Bionic Commando is a Capcom game.
Yeah. Oh, okay, we'll put that down as a fail, because it was.
Next question. You've got a chance of this one, because I know you've seen this film.
Okay.
Which iconic 90s wrestler played a henchman in the first Expendables movie?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Steve Austin is correct. Well done.
He was
going to say you should know that because I know you've seen the Expendables.
I really like the Expendables movies.
Next question. Triple H battled Wesley Snipes in which Marvel Comics movie?
Well, it's going to be one of the Blades.
Which one?
So Triple H versus... Well, it's not the third one, because he was famously an asshole in that and wouldn't do most of his scenes. So I'm going to go with 2.
I'm afraid it was 3. Blade Trinity, Triple H is one of the vampire henchmen. He's got a little dog that he carries around with him.
Oh, fair enough. No, okay.
Because David Goyer thought, hey, wouldn't it be funny if this huge muscly man had a little chihuahua that he carries around? Next question. Which wrestler turned actor sung the song You're Welcome in the Disney film Moana?
The Rock.
It is The Rock. Okay, next question. I've deliberately phrased this because I don't think you've seen any of these films, but I've phrased the question deliberately in a way that should give it away.
Okay.
Which wrestler turned actor could you not see in films like The Suicide Squad, Fast and Furious 9 and 10, and the Barbie movie?
Oh, I know he was in the Barbie movie. It's John Cena, and thank you for phrasing the question that way.
You can't see me.
Yeah.
John Cena, did you see what he did at the Oscars?
Yeah, he came out with just an envelope across his crotch.
Yeah.
Some people are saying that's an Illuminati shame thing.
Oh, for the love of God.
And you know what? this is the times where I'm like, where's Alex Jones to give me this information?
Yeah. Turning the frickin' frogs gay.
Why is his voice so similar in our version of it to Vincent Kennedy McMahon?
Because it is.
It's the same voice.
They should do a WrestleMania match.
Yes.
Alex Jones versus Vince McMahon.
You're turning the frogs gay. I'm Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Who's talking in this?
Last question. Which MCU character launched Dave Bautista to fame?
Guardian of Galaxy 3. The third guy in Guardians.
Oh, come on, you must know the name. You've seen Guardians.
Uncle Fred. Dude.
You could do it.
You got Star-Lord, you've got the Apple Woman.
Gamora.
Yeah. See, I don't even remember her name. She's just a green girl. She's always the alien except when she's Uhura.
Yeah.
You've got Rocket, Raccoon.
Yeah.
I Am Groot.
Yeah.
And then Rock Boy.
You've literally named everyone except Batista's character.
Well, I didn't name Gamora, to be fair. Apple Woman. I don't know. Muscle Man.
It's Drax the Destroyer.
Oh, Captain Rock Tits is his real name, let's be honest.
And I've put a bonus question here.
Good, because I'm going to bloody need it.
No, you've got no chance of getting this. No
if
chance.
I do, what happens if I win?
So I'll give you 5 points if you get it.
Yes! Okay.
But you won't.
Go on.
Unless you've actually listened to me in your life, which you haven't.
Well, I forgot the name you gave me at the beginning for a film that I'd already seen.
Staying on the topic of Batista.
Yep.
Back when he was a wrestler, what was the name of Batista's finishing move?
The Batista Bomb.
Motherfucker!
Yeah, 5 points, motherfucker! Yes!
Well done! Well done, it is the Batista Bomb.
Yes!
You remembered that, but you didn't remember Rowdy Roddy Piper
Drax.
when it was said 30 seconds before I asked you the question. How did you remember Batista Bomb?
Because you mention it all the time. To be fair, you also mention Rowdy Roddy Piper all the time.
Yeah.
It's selective idiocy, I think.
Anyway, so on that quiz, Rory, you scored 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you actually did get 5 right, plus your 5 bonus points. Yeah. So that gives you 10 out of a possible 15. So the wrestler. I don't recall which of us put this in the list because both of us wanted to watch it.
Yep.
I think this might have been a rare mutual.
One of us probably would have mentioned it, and the other was like, "Fuck yes."
Yeah. So why don't you start by telling the audience about the first time you saw The Wrestler?
Oh, it's an odd one. So I've only ever seen this once before this watch through. And here's the weird thing: I loved it. I thought it was freaking amazing. Didn't understand a word of it. And I'll tell you for why, because that may sound weird. And it's not the accents, it's not that. Actually, a very different reason. I always wanted to see this film, and it wasn't until 2010 that I actually saw it on DVD with a then girlfriend who was German. I went to Germany, I stayed with her for a little while, and she had it on DVD, put it on. Oh, let's watch this. But to try and help me learn German, she kept it with the German dub, and it was only about halfway in that she decided to give. She was like, "What do you think? It's good, isn't it?" I'm like, I don't really know what's going on. So she then...
Whoa. So was there no English subtitles?
Halfway through, she put on the English subtitles. But the first...
So it was actually just in German?
Yes.
Like, I thought you meant German with English subs.
No, the second half I had subs, but by that point, most of the story's already built.
Yeah.
And all I was doing was watching a Mickey Rourke walk around while some German dubber is going, "Fick dich," which is German for "fuck you." That's all I had. And I was just watching it. I was like, weirdly enough, the film still worked. That's the weird bit, because I
can imagine that. This is actually not a film.
There's a lot of physical storytelling.
The script, and I don't say this a lot as a writer, because usually writers are my buddies, but a lot of reviews I read for this film mentioned how the script is very bare bones, and they're not wrong. The script is not doing the heavy lifting in this film.
It's the performances.
It is a film that works, as you say. You can almost watch it without any dialogue and still get a rough feel of what's happening.
Yeah, and so obviously I didn't know the nitty gritty, but it was very obvious just from visual...
The broad strokes.
Yeah, that I understood he was seeing this young girl, which ended up being his daughter, but I got that. Because it was nothing romantic or sexual in it. So I was like, okay, well, then there's only one reason he'd be seeing a girl that young. Obviously, there's him with Mr. Tomei, who was someone who's more, quote-unquote, age-appropriate, as it were. But there was also some romance to their meetups, which made that more understandable as a potential girlfriend angle. So, yeah, I watched the whole thing with just Mickey Rourke going, "Fick dich." And, but but I still got the story, and by the end, it was still really, hard hitting. That to me is a huge testament to the performances, visual performances, even if I didn't hear their dialogue, of the cast, and the strong direction from Darren Aronofsky. So yeah, I had never seen this in English.
Right.
And half of it I hadn't seen with subs either. When it came to watching it this time, I've had a much better time of it because I watched it in English. So yeah, we'll talk about that when we get into the movie. Yeah. What about your first?
So funnily enough, I also saw it for the first time in 2010.
Nice.
I got into wrestling in 2009.
You weren't a blonde German woman in 2010, were you?
No. I watched it with my girlfriend as well at the time, in my dorm room at uni.
Right.
Well, actually, we were in her dorm room. Yeah, I got into wrestling in 2009 when I had to take my little brother to Nottingham Arena to watch WWE were on tour. And I was actually very glad I had to go. At first, my parents were like, "You've got to take him." I was like, oh, that looks terrible. I don't want to do that. Ended up loving it. And I'd heard the film. I'd heard very good things about the film. I'd heard it was Mickey Rourke's comeback, which meant nothing to me because I did not know who Mickey Rourke was at the time. Nope. So I was a bit like,
for me, I've heard that in Sin City, what? But I think they came out about the same sort of time anyway. This definitely got him more accolades.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it the first time. I liked it more this time around because back then, as I say, I'd only just got into wrestling. I've now been into wrestling a long time, and I have literally seen what happens to some of those wrestlers who I loved.
Yeah.
When they get older, and it makes you realise even more how accurate in some ways this film is, and not in others, because Bret Hart's not entirely wrong.
No.
There are some ways in which it's not that this film is inaccurate, it's that this film has deliberately chosen to portray the worst possible path.
Yeah.
And as Bret said, most of them don't go this way, touch wood, but more than should do.
I reckon there's a discussion that we'll have in a little bit about, our interpretations of why that may be.
So just to quickly sum up the plot for anyone who hasn't seen it, and I do recommend you do go see it if you haven't. But essentially, Mickey Rourke...
I forgot how good this film was.
Yeah. Mickey Rourke plays Randy the Ram Robinson, who was a massively famous wrestler in the 1980s. He's actually an amalgamation of several real-life wrestlers, including Rowdy Roddy Piper, a dash of Hulk Hogan, and most notably, like the one that he seems to most notably be based on, is Jake the Snake Roberts, who was a famous villain wrestler in the 80s. He used to bring a snake out with him. He was the inventor of the DDT. That was his finishing
Surely
move.
All the male wrestlers come out with a snake with them.
Yeah. That was his finishing move, and since then the DDT has become a standard move that everyone does.
What's DDT?
A DDT is there's all variations on it, but a standard DDT, the one Jake the Snake invented, was he would be standing facing his opponent, he'd kick them in the stomach, they'd bend over, he would hook their head under one armpit, so they're facing away from him. And then he drops to his back, and it looks like he's driving their head into the floor.
Right.
In actual fact, his back and arm take all the impact, and the wrestler just sort of collapses onto a front bump.
Yeah, which still isn't fun.
Which still isn't fun, and there's still obviously dangers to that move, especially because there's now variations of it to make it more extreme, such as a double underhook DDT, where you actually hook their arms so their arms can't help them fall.
Right.
And spike DDT, which is where you actually you lift them a little bit. And so that they come in at a steeper angle.
Right.
So it looks even more like they whack their head. So he was, but he had, in reality, Jake the Snake had a real sad story. I do believe he's gotten himself clean now, so that's nice. But basically, he was very famous for a few years, got addicted to pain medication because of there was no health care back then for wrestlers, or any sick pay or anything like that. He had a back issue, started taking pain meds, got addicted to them, ended up fucking his whole life up, ended up estranged from his family, kept trying to mount comebacks that never really worked, ended up, at one point he was at WrestleMania, and then a few years later, just like the Ram, he's wrestling in fucking school gyms for a crowd of 20 people.
Yeah.
And he's getting paid 20 quid.
Yeah.
Or $20.
That's what kind of happens to the main character of the film.
Yeah,
right at the beginning,
Jake
the
the
first
Snake
thing is apologies. It's not as much as you were hoping for.
Yeah. I thought the gate would be more.
Yeah.
He's definitely mostly based on Jake the Snake. Like, the parallels are just too obvious.
Sure.
Anyway, we skip ahead 20 years to the present day of 2008, and things aren't going well for the Ram. He's older. He's not selling out arenas anymore. As we said, he's wrestling in independent promotions at small gymnasiums and things like that for, at most, a crowd of 100 people on a good day, and most of the ones are even smaller than that. He is alone, living in a trailer park, where he is actually locked out of his trailer because he hasn't paid the rent. Do you know who played his landlord in a Blink and You'll Miss It cameo? He's literally got one line.
Yeah, I didn't really see him.
It's the guy from Breaking Bad who's in the wheelchair and keeps ringing the bell, Mark Margolis.
Yeah. He's also the landlord. He plays a lot of landlords. He was also the landlord in Ace Ventura.
Oh, yeah, he's Hank's dad.
Ventura.
He's Hank's dad in Californication as well.
Right.
And he was in Star Trek Next Gen. He's estranged from his daughter. He's working a part-time job at a supermarket and wrestling on weekends. And kind of is desperate to reclaim that glory. One day after a particularly brutal match, which we're going to talk about later, he has a heart attack and is told by his doctor that he should give up wrestling altogether. And as you can probably guess, because there wouldn't really be a film if he didn't, he finds that a difficult thing to give up. There wouldn't really be a film if he just went, oh yeah, you're right, I better never wrestle again.
Yeah.
Film just ends there. Done.
What are you saying, Doc? You can't keep wrestling. Okay.
So,
I don't know why I made that theme up for the rest. It definitely doesn't have that in theme.
So I think where we should start is I don't think there's any way you can start except with Mickey Rourke himself. Because I think that Mickey Rourke, I think a huge, not to take anything away from Aronofsky or from the cinematography or anything like that, I don't think this film works without Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
Because it's not that there aren't other actors who could have done the role. For example, I don't know if you knew this, but the role actually was originally offered to Nicolas Cage.
Nah, same film.
Nick Cage turned it down.
Not saying again. Can't say Nicolas Cage could have done it, but
yeah. So Nick Cage stepped away because, so there's differing things.
Right.
Aronofsky has said that he always wanted Rourke. Studio was like, you can't have Rourke, he's a fuck-up, he's a wash-up.
Yeah, they had the same problem in Expendables.
Yeah, here have Nick Cage, but Nick Cage basically sensed that Aronofsky wanted Rourke and was a gentleman and said, you should have who you want, and stepped aside. But actually Nick Cage denies that, even though I wouldn't, because that makes him sound like a good guy.
Yeah.
Nick Cage
No,
says,
I'm an asshole.
Nick Cage said basically in the time frame he had from them hiring him to the shoot, the only way for him to have gotten into the shape he needed to be in would have been to do steroids, and he didn't want to do steroids.
That's understandable.
Which is also understandable, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
with the hero
fun fact about this film, you know the scene near the beginning where the Ram's buying steroids from that absolutely giant beast of a man?
Yep.
Yeah, a year after the film came out, that guy got arrested for actually selling steroids.
Jesus Christ.
He actually was a steroid distributor.
Maybe he wasn't acting.
Well, the budget was low.
It was.
I think the reason you need Rourke in the film, and the reason, and I don't want to take anything away from his performance here, but I think the reason it works so well is this essentially is the autobiographical story of Mickey Rourke.
Yes.
Mickey Rourke's story parallels the Rams so much.
Sin City made him popular. This film made him back again as an acting darling, because he nails this.
Which he then promptly ruined by doing Iron Man 2. Where's my bud? I want my bud.
To be fair, he didn't ruin his career. He's still done some really good movies, but this was definitely his revival. And only, as you say, only he could play this role because he'd had that massive drop from grace and had to struggle to rebuild it at whatever
you, the
cost.
Audience, because people don't watch. I've argued this before. People don't watch films in a vacuum. You bring all of your metatextual knowledge to the film.
Sure.
People know that Rourke's been through that.
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier to accept him as the character.
Yeah, if you put Leonardo DiCaprio in there, say, even if you could perform the actual acting part of the role, you'd still be there like...
A part of your brain is always, well, this is Leo DiCaprio, he's rich as fuck.
Yeah.
He's never really gone, touch wood, never really gone through anything like this.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want him to. But the fact that Rourke has... And the thing is... I'm not saying it's easy for him to do the role. Far from it. He clearly put a lot of effort into this role. But, like, you don't have to... You never question his believability in the role. And even if you don't know his personal background, his performance bears the scars of the shit he's been through. So he doesn't have to fake having been through that. He's been there.
Yeah.
That lower depth, he's been there. And he just draws on that as actual learned experience. Yeah, it doesn't work without Rourke. I don't care who else you put in this role. You could put in the best actor in the world. It wouldn't be the right guy for the role. This is one of those few film roles where it's like, this is an irreplaceable actor. That's my view on him.
No, I agree. It has to be Mickey Rourke. Your other big performance in this is obviously Marissa Tomei as Cassidy / Pam.
Yep.
The stripper with a heart of gold, as they say. In what I think is quite a good performance. It's very easy to do this sort of character badly.
Yeah.
The hooker with a heart of gold stereotype.
Yeah. You can play it as a stereotype quite quick. Like, it's been done a million times.
It can be written as a stereotype and you can play it as a stereotype. Yeah. And both the script and Tomei avoid that.
Yeah.
I think the character is... I feel like there's a palpable sense of her in a struggle.
Yeah.
Of wanting to... Because you got to remember, her struggle parallels his.
Well, she wants to be respected as a mother as well, doesn't she?
Well, this is the thing. Her struggle parallels his in the sense that both of them are from professions that value youth.
Yeah.
And they're both aging out of the profession.
Yeah.
He's getting too old to wrestle anymore, and you see, like, her first scene is those guys telling them they don't want to strip from her because she's old.
They're taking the piss out of how old. I'm like, dude, I would fucking take Marissa Tomei any day.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Amazing.
But... And there's this battle between she wants to remain professional because she's desperately trying to cling to this job.
Yeah.
So she's I've got this line in the sand, which is I don't date customers, I don't do it.
Yep.
But she also is trapped in a way because he's the only one who's nice to her. He's the only one who sees her. He's the only one who actively wants her around.
Yeah.
But then
he treats her like a person rather than just as an object.
But then that also bothers her, doesn't it? Because then that's why when she confesses to him that she's got a kid, and she's like, I'm not just a stripper. I'm a mother as well.
I'm not. He thinks he's going to be like, oh, I thought you just like this slag.
Yeah, because he's in it for the fantasy of dating a stripper.
But he's not. He's actually likes her.
Yeah. So without those two performances, the whole film, you're essentially...
You've got no film without
You've got no film, because this is a character study more so than anything.
Absolutely.
It's very controversial's not the word I'm looking for, unusual for me, because I often sit here and criticise films for being ugly. There's a lot of greys, that sort of thing. We did Star Trek not that long ago, and I criticised that. This film's ugly.
Yeah.
But
it's a gritty slice of life.
But this is the thing. It's a rare instance of that works in the film's favour.
Yeah.
Because the film itself feels downtrodden.
Yeah.
As a product.
Yeah.
It feels almost like a documentary.
Yeah, or a home video almost.
Especially the opening. And I really like that the opening is then echoed later on. So the opening sequence, we actually don't see Mickey Rourke's face for about 4 minutes or something. The camera's actually always behind him as he's in his dressing room getting ready, walking to the ring. You can hear the audience chanting, Ram, Ram, Ram.
And it's a Dodge Ram!
And later on in the film, when he's given up wrestling, touch wood, he takes more hours at the supermarket, and they put him on the deli counter, which he's nervous about doing that because he doesn't want the public to see him because of his downfall from... It's embarrassing,
people
isn't
recognise him.
Yeah, and be like, oh, look where you are now. But as he's making his way, I don't know if you noticed, but as he makes his way towards that shift for the first time, the camera work mimics the opening.
Right.
Where the camera is always behind him.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's really clever. But that's him opening up into a different type of stage.
And on the soundtrack, it starts to bleed in the cheers.
Right.
And the chants of Ram, Ram, Ram. And obviously, when he gets to the counter, just before he goes out, there's a plastic curtain he has to go through. Just like the curtain he has to go through to get on stage. And when he opens the plastic curtain, all the chants cut off.
Yeah.
Like stark reality has just smacked him in the face.
Yeah.
And then one thing I really liked was you see that his charisma is a natural thing because he starts to turn the deli counter into a bit of a show, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's like
himself. Joking and laughing and quipping with the customers.
Yeah.
Which I really liked as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
One thing I really liked in this film as a wrestling fan was that it didn't show wrestlers as being bad people.
No, in fact, like, you've got the one who's dealing drugs, but in general, even he's friendly.
Yeah, and so in the first wrestling show you see him do, he gets introduced to the heel. He's obviously playing the face. Yeah. The heel's the guy with the big mohawk. And while they're out in the ring, he's all like, yeah, I'm the champion, man.
Yeah, slagging him off as they're want to do.
But backstage, he keeps calling him sir.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's a veteran, isn't he, the Ram? And there's that real respect
and he wants the respect back from the Ram. He's like, I'm new, but you're doing great. You just need to...
Yeah, which, everything I've ever heard about wrestling is that's the way it works. And a lot of wrestlers have come out and said, like, it really captured that backstage feel.
Yeah. Something that's interesting about this is what would have been easy to do for the script is to have, like, one arsehole wrestler. Yeah. And it's about...
a villain.
Yeah, and then you're just like, well, that... Obviously, because wrestlers can be arseholes, and here's this arsehole, and he's a real arsehole. And it evades all of that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of this script and a lot of what Aronofsky was trying to get to was the very reality of what wrestling is like. Now, again, people who actually, A, follow wrestling, and B, people who are wrestlers will have a better insight than I ever will into that. But... Again, a lot of the stuff you've told me, even wrestlers who actually can't stand each other, there is a modicum of sportsmanship and respect there. Yeah. And they don't dick each other over insofar as, like, if they're doing a match together, they still act like professionals. They
keep each other safe.
Yeah, and the only time that there's only a few rare instances where that has not been the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, there is a lot of sportsmanship there. Even amongst wrestlers who don't like each other, most of them get on. Because they have to. They're working together. Yeah. And that it captures that very well. And it doesn't make the wrestling or the wrestlers the villains. Even the drug dealer guy isn't a bad guy. Like, you can argue he's bad for dealing drugs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's not like he's not a villain.
Yeah, he's not like a, typical, missing teeth, meet them in the back alley, you owe me first, because he's dealing performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
It's the dirty secret of the sporting world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is a lot of top athletes are on performance-enhancing drugs because they have to... That's what it takes to be the best, especially as you're getting older and your natural gift starts to...
Yeah.
Fade.
You were saying a lot of them get addicted to painkillers and things like that because, as you can imagine, getting slammed against the floor 500 times a night for 50 nights, you're going to start to feel wear down and feel groggy and,
more than 50 as well, by the way, because to be fair, if he was doing indies, it's only weekends, isn't it?
But, yeah.
In terms of actual, WWE, so you have Raw and SmackDown each week.
Yeah.
So wrestlers will only be on TV once a week, but they'll do 3 or 4 what they call house shows, which are non-televised shows, a week as well, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
It's literally...
Yeah, it's non-stop.
Yeah, like the wear and tear on the body must be...
Yeah.
Terrible.
And yet we expect it to keep going.
Yeah.
Or at least the people who run it expect it to keep going.
Yeah. And the fans do too. I mean,
yeah.
That's the dark side that this touches on a little bit at the end when he's like, the only ones who will tell me when I'm done doing my thing is you guys.
That's actually a talk about fandom.
You do get that thing in the fandom where like a wrestler will come out and people will be like, one more match. It's like, no, just let them retire.
Yeah.
They've given all they've got to give.
Yeah. And they've given you years of entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, let them go. Like, let them have a life post wrestling. But so something that this film does touch on. Sorry, I'll let you finish first.
No, that's all right. I've forgotten what my point was going to be.
Sorry, man.
No. Let's see. I was talking about wrestling. I'm going to leave the bit about the extreme match because that's my actually one negative in the film. So I'm going to leave that till towards the end when we do negatives.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say... Oh, that was it, yes. I was just going to say, one thing this film captures that's really interesting is the juxtaposition between the world of wrestling and reality. In the world of wrestling, he's obviously a superstar.
Yeah.
Everyone knows him. And he's just Joe Average outside of that. In fact,
he's a
Joe
nobody.
Below Average.
Yeah.
Because he lives in a trailer park and he's not overly intelligent and,
people don't really
things
respect
like that.
him.
And
his boss doesn't respect him at work.
It's really interesting because not if you were like Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, obviously, even if you didn't watch wrestling, you knew who Hulk Hogan was.
Yeah, but for most wrestlers.
But for someone who's working the indies, yeah, like I don't watch indie wrestling. I've been to one indie show locally in Rayleigh. It was a lot of fun. But I'm not someone, so the company he ends up wrestling for at the end of this film is Ring of Honor. That's a real company.
Right.
They've actually just been bought out, I think.
By WWE?
No, I think AEW bought them out.
Right.
But my point is, it is a real company, Ring of Honor. I couldn't name you anyone who wrestles for it.
Right.
Because I only watch I don't watch WWE anymore either. I don't have time to dedicate 5 hours a week to wrestling, and that's only if you watch Raw and SmackDown. If you watch all their other shows, you're looking at like 15 hours a week.
Well, they've got their own channel, haven't they? So it's almost 24-hour pure content being pumped out.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I know, it's madness.
Madness.
But my point is, for wrestlers like that must be really weird because while you're in an arena, you know, while you're in that theatre and you're on stage, people are watching you and they're clapping.
You're kind of a star, even if you're only on a very small stage.
Yeah, for that very small moment in time.
Yeah.
But then you're a nobody and you just go back to your everyday normal life and it's weird.
You're just a dude again.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's happening here, except he used to have the big time. And he's constantly craving that big time.
He wants to get that back where he comes up. And there's a sobering moment, isn't there? During this film, he does a wrestling match. It goes a bit like after the wrestling match, he collapses.
That's a heart attack, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it turns out he's had a heart attack. They've had to do either a bypass or replace the heart.
They say bypass, yeah.
Yeah, so they do a bypass. He's got a big vertical scar on his chest now. And he's told he can't wrestle anymore. And then the rest of the film is him trying to get back to living a normal life, as everyone else would, but finding it's impossible for him because all he ever wants or craves is to get back, because it's the only thing he knows. Yeah. So he tries to do a normal 9-to-5 job at a supermarket and go back to talking to his daughter and, you know, maybe getting a girlfriend. And it all goes pear-shaped. And whenever it hits the pit, where it's like, even if it's temporary, if it hits a little drop or a pit, it's immediately, well, what's wrestling doing? How can, and it's this draw because it's all he's ever known. Yeah. He doesn't know how to do anything else. Like, he's doing supermarket work, but again, as you say, when he's there, even when he's on top of the world, he's making it into a
performance.
Yeah, a performance. Because that's what he is. That's kind of what I do when I'm working.
He's a performer.
Yeah. And this comes to one of the things that I wanted to talk about. On this film, which was a takeaway that I suggested to you, and you said you got a completely different angle. So, is this the right sort of time for me to?
I was just going to say on the point you've just made. What ends up costing him his relationship with his daughter is he goes to watch a wrestling match as a fan, loves it very much, ends up going backstage to talk to the wrestlers because he's clearly just craving a little taste. They end up inviting him to party. A hot young blonde fan recognises him, and He ends up banging her dunny in the toilet, and that girl walks in. She's
like,
"Get a room."
Oh, that's the sobering bit.
But he ends up, because he does drugs with her dunny.
Yes.
He ends up oversleeping and misses
a dinner
his
date
last chance with his daughter, basically.
The sobering moment as well. Sorry that I forgot to mention. So he's had the heart attack, and then he goes to do this signing. And then he sees the other wrestlers there, ex-wrestlers.
And they're all fucked.
They're all fucked. There's a guy who's like got a prosthetic. There's one who's got like a piss bag on his leg.
Yeah, one in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and things like that. And it's like, this is now his life. Yeah. And he doesn't want to be that guy past the post. He wants to be back in the ring.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of where he realizes, his time is ending. But he can't accept it.
Yeah, time comes for us all.
Yeah, and here's the thing. These other wrestlers have also kind of accepted it because they're doing it, but they all look miserable because, again, they're probably doing the same, yearning for, the good times when they were on top of the world back in the ring. So this is my take. Jamie will be able to, dive in with agreements, disagreements, alternate takes, things like that. But for me, one of the things that was... So, by the time I messaged Jamie a couple of things at the end of this film, I forgot how powerful the ending was, because I remembered...
I didn't go back and read those, sorry.
No, that's right. No, it's fine, because I couldn't read them out here. But at the end, there's a bit where he jumps off the top turnbuckle, and it's kind of... It's essentially a suicide run of him being back in the ring, back to the man he was. But it's a death. It's a death. He signed his death warrant.
Yeah, because in the match leading up to that, you could tell he starts gasping for breath.
Yep.
He clearly becomes confused at one point because he tries to do his opponent's finishing move.
Yep.
And the opponent, you hear him go down. He goes, "What are you doing? That's my move."
Yeah. And, the opponent's just like, "Look, you all right, man? The fucking heel is sitting there trying to go, look, dude, like, are you all right? Like, you need to chill down." And there's also moments where we hear we hear the non-diegetic sound of like a high-pitched whistle and the heartbeat. As we hear that, his heart is failing him. It's that ending is so perfect, like it's so perfectly done.
Different to what I remembered, by the way.
Oh, really? It's exactly what I remembered.
No, I remembered it ended with him on the turnbuckle.
Yeah.
I didn't remember how ambiguous it was. I thought he actually
died.
Like I thought he slipped and fell from the turnbuckle.
Oh,
like he got up to do the move,
and
I just had this memory of his eyes rolling in the back of his head, and he flops off of the turnbuckle.
He almost does at one point. Yeah.
But he actually does jump, doesn't he?
He gets to do the move, but you know that the move has probably killed him.
Yeah, well, as I read somewhere, they were like, even if he doesn't actually die at that exact moment, the point of that bit is he is going to die soon because he shouldn't be wrestling. So even if he survives this match, he's basically signed a death warrant by sticking on this path.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to suggest about this film, and this isn't maybe a hot take, I don't know, is that I think this film is kind of also touching upon something that isn't discussed very much in Hollywood cinema. I think it's also touched upon a little bit in the film Collateral. And there probably are more films as well. I'm just going off the top of my dome on that. But it's kind of about... So it is definitely about masculinity. But I think it's also about the disposability of men. And we're focusing on one man in particular for this movie, but essentially all those wrestlers in that stage are going to end up going the same way, as we see by the sobering moment where he sees the other ex-wrestlers who are all basically dying but just doing signatures.
Yeah. Now you mention it, no female wrestlers in this.
No, but I think that would have unnecessarily complicated the story.
I think maybe it's to do with back then women's wrestling was still more sort of they're actually models having pillow fights.
The other thing I know about this film is that the original plan from Darren Aronofsky was that this and Black Swan were the same movie.
I'm going to talk about that later.
And I think essentially there's not really any men in Black Swan. I think what he decided to do was just split them and focus on each and gender split them almost. So, which you know what? Was the best thing because both films are great, I think. I love both films. The disposability of men. So the reason for that is obviously within the ring, he is a massive presence. Everyone loves him. Everyone remembers him. Even if he's not on top of his game anymore, he is still the man. As soon as he's out of that role, as we've said, he is nothing. He lives in a trailer. Half the time he can't get in it because his landlord locks him out. He's got no respect from the day-to-day job he works at the supermarket. People treat him like shit generally wherever he goes. His daughter doesn't care for him. His own fault in a way because he abandoned her as well. So, he's not blameless in this. There's, so
he takes responsibility for that as well.
He does. But that's the thing. There's a lot of outside of the little pocket of wrestling, he is literally dirt. And so essentially he's worth nothing outside of what he can provide, which is a very standard story. Yeah, and so usually when I don't want to, because I'm not an incel, I'm not going into that territory. But obviously there is a huge dialogue at the moment online of, these incel-y kind of guys talking about men are only worth what they can provide. And this film essentially does discuss that, but in a more grounded way, in a more, I think, realistic way, because obviously the dialogue online is ridiculous. It's like, women only care if you've got this, this, and this. I couldn't give a shit about that. That's obviously just diatribe. What this film does, but that I honestly do agree that there is a disposability of man issue in society, and this does discuss it. You notice, so his value in the ring is high. Outside of the ring, immediately he loses all value as a human being. Even his own boss at work is just like, he's like, can you not put me on the counter? Sticks him on the counter all the time.
Won't even call him by his preferred name.
No, gives him a name badge that says Robin. He's essentially worth nothing, and his daughter doesn't care about him. And to be fair, you can agree with the fact that she's got years of damage from the fact that he abandoned her. It's a hard one to play because he kind of deserves the hate at the same time. But essentially all of these things come down to a man who's made lots of negative choices for himself, stuck in a rut, and there is no way out of the rut. There is no way out.
Yeah, and he faces that because he's got the line, isn't he, where he says, maybe I deserve to be alone.
Yeah, but in generality, like even Marissa Tomei's character, as you say, has a similar arc to him. She's not fully disposable because she has a value. She's outside of this place. She's still a mother. So there is still a positive that she gets, and we get no information that her child would hate her or have, because she's, as far as we can tell, she's being a good mother, which is the big difference between, I suppose, her and Mickey Rourke's character. She's being a good mother. He was a terrible father, an absent father. So a lot of these things are to do with the choices you make. Absolutely. But I think this does discuss, and not in incel-y terms, the fact that men, outside of what they provide, in this case for him specifically, he provides entertainment at a very specific type of venue. Outside of that very small slither, you're worthless. You have literally net zero value. And again, this is a generalization and an overgrandizement of that. But I think this film is one of the few films that actually discusses that. So I felt that, even though I've never been a wrestler, certainly if anyone sees photos of me, you'll know I'm not a fucking professional wrestler. I'm not a professional wrestler. I'm not anything like that. But I do know what it feels like that if you get injured or if you've, in any way lost what people consider valuable about you, you're tossed aside, you're worthless. I felt that. You felt that. A lot of men have felt that. Certainly by the time you get to your 30s and 40s. And this film is all about that. This, like, in any other situation, if he was in his 20s even, right, and he was in this situation, he might still have some value, but then he'd probably also be inflexible enough to relearn a craft or relearn something else. His own inflexibility doesn't help him. But that's the problem as well, is his inflexibility. So he hasn't helped himself. And there is something in that, as you get older, you become more inflexible. That's a known quantity. That's a physiological change.
Your brain physically changes. It makes it harder to learn new things.
But it is possible. My dad uses an iPhone flawlessly. He's 72. It's not impossible. So sometimes I get people who are like, I'm 53. I can't use a computer. I'm like, fuck off. Like, my dad's 72 and doing it. It is possible. It's not easy for him as easy it is for me, and certainly it's easier for people who are 20 than it is for me even, because that's just how things are. The younger you are, the more flexible you are, the easier it is to pick up new talents. But we leave people behind, and this is very much that. He's got no value outside of the ring. Get rid of him. jettison him as far as value as a human being is concerned. I don't know. That's what I got from the film, that I felt in a way that didn't mean that I had to know wrestling and meant that I didn't have to be a professional wrestler to empathize and feel what the film is trying to say.
Yeah.
But perhaps my take is wrong, or maybe you have an alternate. I'm actually really open to hearing what the...
I don't think anyone's take on anything is wrong. I think that's the beauty of film. I didn't get any of that from the film, because I would counter by saying, you know, plenty of people do give him a chance. I think you were more on it when you said about his own addiction to wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, it's the thing he keeps going back to, because his daughter does give him a chance and he fucks it up.
Yeah.
Marissa Tomei reaches out to him. She's helping.
Right at the very end as well. She gives him one last chance to walk away.
Yeah.
He doesn't take it.
And even his boss, his boss is a prick, but he gives him a job. He asks for more hours, and yes, you are right. He fucks with him, and he's like, "Oh, you don't want to work on that? Sorry."
But he doesn't respect him for it.
No, and you're right. But to be fair, whose boss does?
But that's an issue with the fact
that corporate America.
We shouldn't accept that shit.
Yeah, we shouldn't. But that's why I don't think it's for me personally. I didn't get any of the specifically male thing. I got the aging thing.
Yeah. The aging thing is definitely strong.
About how we value older people less.
Yes,
which I do very much believe that we live in a very ageist country, personally.
Well, you're worth less because you're older, yeah.
For me, my big thing with The Wrestler is I actually think that you could have a brilliant, yet albeit very depressing, trio of viewing if you were to watch... all by Aronofsky, The Wrestler, Black Swan, and Mother.
I haven't seen Mother.
We're actually going to do... See, I haven't seen Black Swan. We're actually going to do Mother in a few weeks' time.
Right, excellent.
And we must do Black Swan at some point.
Honestly, I love it.
I've had Black Swan.
I hate ballet. I've got no interest in it. It fucking gripped me.
I've had Black Swan on DVD since it came out on DVD, and I've never watched it.
Dude.
Because someone spoiled the twist for me.
Oh,
and I've been hoping that I would forget the twist, but I don't forget it. So it seems to me that Aronofsky, as an artist, a particular area of interest for him, in the way that artists tend to have certain areas that they like to explore again and again, is the destructive nature of being an artist.
Yes.
Because those three films all explore different facets of that.
Yeah.
The Wrestler is about someone who has reached a point where their body no longer is capable of carrying out their art.
Yep.
His art is storytelling through wrestling.
Yeah.
His body is breaking down on him. To quote the Bible, I think this is from the Bible, the mind is willing but the flesh is weak.
Right. I don't know.
I think it's a famous saying, isn't it? I think it's
saying.
from the Bible, but I could be wrong. It might be fucking Shakespeare or something.
The mind is willing, but the skin is all fleshy and bruised.
My mind is telling me no, but my body is telling me yes. Black Swan, what I know of it, is that's very much about someone who should be in the prime of their art, but the pressure to deal with it and to be the best is causing them to break down. Yep.
That's more of a psychological breakdown than a physical one.
And Mother, at least because what you'll notice when we watch Mother is even more open to interpretation than those two films are. Right. Mother is very open. There's a very obvious reading of it that most people pick up on. But above the obvious reading, for me, Mother is about certain artists allow their art to destroy everyone around them. Ooh. So whereas the first two are self-destructive, Mother is about destroying everyone. So Jennifer Lawrence is the lead in Mother. Right. But she's not the artist. Javier Bardem is. Right. Who plays her husband. But his art ruins her life.
Wow. I'm fascinated by that.
Oh, I love Mother. Honestly, I went to the cinema to watch it. It was marketed terribly. Awful marketing, to the point where Darren Aronofsky himself released an open letter apologising for the marketing. Wow. It wasn't in his control, because it never is.
Yeah, it's studio,
But he literally, because the trailer made it look like it was sort of a modern Rosemary's Baby type horror film.
Right.
It's not. It's an art house film.
Right.
Like,
so people went for a cheesy horror, and they got an
art house film where, honestly, for the first...
Sounds like they got an upgrade.
I would honestly say you're at least an hour and 10 minutes into the film before you work out what's happening, I would say.
Wow. That's a long time to be confused.
Yeah, it just feels like chaos up to that point.
Right. Chaos and death.
Yeah, literally. So he apologised for it. I went to the cinema to see it. There were 6 of us in the cinema, including me. 3 of them walked out 20 minutes in.
Jesus.
And it was one of those films, and I don't often have this. The whole film, I was watching it, and in the back of my head going, I don't know if I'm enjoying this or not. I actually don't know.
Was it gripping you, though?
Yes.
So it's capturing your attention, you just didn't know if it was enjoyable.
And then when I clicked what was going on, like what the metaphor was, all of a sudden I was like, I love this.
Right.
This is great.
But you have to work for it almost.
Yeah, it's a film that rewards your patience. But yes, so for me, I feel that this is a theme Aronofsky is obsessed with. 3
or at
films
least during this point. When was Mother released?
Mother's much more recent. So obviously, as you said, Wrestler and Black Swan are right next to each other because originally it was one film.
Yeah.
Mother was 2016.
Right. So no, it's been at least 10 years. It's been
20. No, it must have been after 2016. 2017, I think it was.
2017.
So it's a long time later. But so for me, this film was about that. It was about how self-destructive being an artist can be.
Yeah.
Because I do interpret it as Ram dies at the end. He literally
I interpret that.
I
think, honestly, I know you can interpret it that he could live at the end, but the story doesn't really make as much sense if he does.
It's just much more satisfying, isn't it, if he dies?
But I love the ambiguity, though.
Yeah.
Actually, not seeing his death kind of makes it more impactful, because, as you say, you don't need to know if he's died at that moment. That's not really relevant. He's dead.
The fact he takes the leap is all you need to know.
That makes him dead, regardless of, as you say, whether or not it's immediate or months later.
Yeah. So for me, that's what was so appealing about this film, because as someone who has, if I may be so bold, who has lived with the self-destruction that comes with being an artist, it's the same reason Mother appeals to me as well, because I have certainly hurt people before with my art, and ruined aspects of my life through it, much like the Ram.
Yeah,
I am alone because of my single-minded pursuit of my art to the detriment of all else. You know, I had a fiancée and everything, and I never spent any time with her because I was always chasing the film thing.
Yeah. It does damage relationships.
So that's why this has a sort of an appeal to me, and yet at the same time, I can't say I enjoy the film, because it's not that sort of film.
It's not a fun film, quote unquote.
Yeah.
It's not like Dodgeball and even outside of comedy, but you can get films that are just, really fun.
Yeah.
This isn't fun.
And
it's really heartbreaking. It's really impactful. This is one of the greatest films of the last 20 years, in my opinion, because it's a character study, because it succeeds at everything it's trying to discuss. Yeah. And it does it so well, and it doesn't use any freaking bullshittery. The whole thing is actual film, an actual storyline, and as you say, the script may be somewhat bare bones. The powerhouse performances just absolutely crush it. So this is honestly one of the best films of the last 20 years, in my opinion. For me, as a movie,
I think I'd agree. Yeah, I think I would agree,
because you've got obviously bigger budget films, ones with more celebrities, ones with more, like most Marvel movies have a lot more star power, a lot more money, a lot more pizzazz, a lot more wim bam shabam. None of them are as good as this. I'm sure that there are some that have emotional points that are close. None of them hit home like this.
Yeah.
At least none of the ones I've seen. To be fair, I've not seen all the Marvel movies.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. There is a. I love when a film just tells a damn good story and knows what it's doing with it.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, I've been watching. Sorry, just bear in mind, I've been watching this alongside a load of old black and white movies that I've been. So, Pick Up on South Street, Odds Against Tomorrow. I want to watch one called The Offence, which is a Sidney Lumet, Sean Connery movie, where he plays a cop who gets so angry he ends up murdering a guy he's meant to be questioning and interrogating, and it kind of goes through as if almost trying to get it's kind of weird because it's almost like looking at the reasons as to why that would happen, not even excusing it, but just like making it so you understand why you'd want to kill the guy that you are interrogating. And apparently that's meant to be it's Sidney Lumet, so it probably is amazing. Every film I've seen of his is incredible. The Network, 12 Angry Men, etc. Guy's incredible. And these are films that didn't have CGI, didn't have a lot, if any, visual effects, and they just knew how to frame a shot and make it look amazing. This film, likewise, it had $6 million budget. I bet well over half of that went on the cast, at least. About the other 2/3 went on crew, so you didn't have much left for anything else. It looks indie, and I tell you what, it tells a damn good story. It knows how to set up a camera and it knows how to pay it off. This is an incredible film.
So on this show, we always try to be fair and balanced when we review anything.
Yep. And
we've lost sight of that a little bit in the last few episodes we've recorded. Certainly I have. Certainly with Phantom Menace, I came out of the gate hot.
To be fair, I can't exactly have a go because I wasn't really balanced and fair on Serendipity.
No. So if I had to pick something in this that I didn't like, and it's not that I hate it or anything like that, but one thing I had a slight problem with, but I can totally understand why Darren Aronofsky chose to include the scene. There's a scene right before he has his heart attack. He goes to CZW and has a match against Necro Butcher. Now, Necro Butcher is a real wrestler.
Oh, okay.
CZW is a real company.
Right.
And the type of match they have is what is called a death match. Now, visually...
But it almost works. He almost does.
Visually, this is obviously a very intense sequence with glass shards, staple guns. Quentin Tarantino is on record as saying he found that scene almost too much. Tarantino did.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, it didn't really push me that far, that scene.
Now, I can understand why it was included. I can. Because and this is where I can see where Bret Hart's coming from. You're trying to tell this, you've only got 2 hours to tell this story. Thank God Aronofsky kept it to a nice tight 2 hours.
It's a man who knows how to time a film.
Yeah. So you need to communicate the Rams' downfall as quickly and succinctly as you can.
Yeah.
So I get that's why they did it. It feels a little cheap because death matches, although they are a real thing, are very, very rare in real life. Because, to put it in terms you'd understand as a non-wrestling fan, you know how we as filmmakers look at something like the Human Centipede?
Yeah.
It exists, it's got appeal for its shock value, but there's actually no skill to it.
Right. Or little skill.
That's what most wrestlers consider death matches to be.
Right, I see.
Because, real wrestling is an art form. That's rude of me to say real wrestling. But traditional wrestling, that's very technical. It's almost a dance. There's a lot of, you have to be in sync with your partner, doing the moves at the same time, doing the blocks right, doing the lifts. Death matches, you're just hitting each other with weapons and seeing who bleeds the most.
Right.
It's more of it's so live Jackass.
Yeah, it's not as skill based. It's just who can take
who's hard as fuck. Yeah. In reality, I feel like a wrestler like the Ram, who had the level of fame he had in the 80s, probably would never do a match like that.
Right.
Even if he was desperate for money. Like, I kind of feel what they should have included. I get why they've included it, but the problem is to non-wrestling fans, it makes them go, oh shit, wrestling must be fucking disgusting. Like, this must be happening all the time.
They should have made it clearer that he was desperate enough for the money to do something as stupid as...
Or he should have been tricked into it.
Right.
Because that's certainly never been unheard of in wrestling. He could have turned up, and then on the day they're like, by the way, we're making this a death match, and he just has to roll with it.
Yeah, so I don't want to do a death match, and so he's got because you need to communicate to the audience what. Because you're right, I have no idea why a death match would be worse. Because there's plenty of them, Rumble in the Cage and fucking like this, the fire matches you've told me about.
Inferno match, they're really rare as well.
Yeah, and it's like those sort of things. So you're just like, okay, so it's just another bloody match type.
Yeah, death matches are very. I mean, personally, I would never watch. I don't watch CZW.
No.
Most people don't. It's got a very small audience base.
Is it because it is the extreme one, or
it's very? I mean, I think it's nearly all death matches. They do a match. They don't do this in this. Thank God. They do a match type where they replace the ropes on the ring with barbed wire, and you throw each other into the barbed wire.
At least you can fake a staple gun. It'd be hard to fake that with Mickey Rourke.
Oh yeah, no, they don't fake the staples either.
No, what in this film?
In the film they do.
Yeah,
but
that's
in
what I
real
meant. Yeah.
CZW,
It's just like in order to fake them for the film. Though having said that, you can get rubber.
Yeah, because he does get a little bit of barbed wire because he cuts himself just under his pec, doesn't he?
Underboob.
So for me personally, if I had to pick a negative, it would be that, because it just felt a little cheap.
Do you think
to pick the most extreme type of wrestling you could?
Well,
but I also understand the logic to it, which is, as I say, you've got to communicate that he's hit rock bottom as quickly as you can.
Yeah. Do you think that's because you said Bret Hart stated that it was not realistic to wrestling?
He didn't say that. He said it's not. He said they're very rare cases.
Right.
So he said not everyone ends up that way, which he's right. The majority, especially now, they don't, because thank God there's better healthcare in place for wrestlers now, and a lot of them transit.
At least in the mainstream.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of the mainstream, I feel like you're not going to see any more Ric Flairs who has carried on wrestling into his 70s.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see that anymore.
He doesn't do that on WWE though, does he? It's all
no, he's had to go to play. WWE kept him till he was like nearly, I think, 55, 56.
Right.
Whereas I don't think that happens now, because a lot of wrestlers now transition into other careers as they get older, either backstage in WWE as trainers or programmers, things like that, or quite a lot of them, more so than ever before, are following The Rock and going into acting. I feel like The Rock did open some doors that way.
Oh, yeah.
Because it used to be a joke, wrestlers becoming actors. It was treated as a joke.
The only one who really made it properly was Hulk Hogan, and even then it was mostly in joke roles.
Yeah. The first one who made it serious was The Rock.
Yeah.
Where he actually is treated as a movie star.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, you're right. Hulk Hogan never was known more as a movie star than a wrestler.
No.
That's now the case with The Rock. He's more known as a movie star now than as a wrestler.
Yeah. But then Batista's followed him. John Cena's followed him.
Yep.
I prefer John Cena as an actor to a wrestler. I hated him as a wrestler.
Right.
So boring. Fucking 5 moves of doom and fucking cookie cutter good guy character. Oh, I'm so patriotic. I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah.
As an actor, I actually think he's got some really good comedy timing.
He's got some comedic chops.
That would be my one nitpick if I had to have one. But it is a harrowing scene. And I can't really fault the film in any other way.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, enjoyed isn't the right word, but you know what I mean. I thought it was a very good film. I think a lot of people would get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
You certainly don't have to if anyone's worried about it. You certainly don't have to know wrestling.
No, I don't know wrestling. I don't know dick about. As again, like most of your questions, I'm like, who was on the roster of WWF Royal Rumble and the Dreamcast?
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Yeah.
So, and I did have WWF Warzone on the N64. I was mostly playing as custom-made characters, so I didn't even know most wrestlers in that. It was you couldn't do that in Royal Rumble, so I was stuck playing as mostly Rikishi. And you know why I played as Rikishi?
Because he wears a diaper and he does the stink face?
No, just because he's fat.
Oh, okay.
It was even more base than that. It was literally like, fat man, because I was, 12?
I don't really have anything else more to say about the wrestler.
No, I'm quite happy with that.
We had 2 different interpretations of it. That was cool. I like when that happens.
Yeah.
Great performances all round. People should definitely go watch it.
Yep, I agree.
And watch I mean, I'd quite like to, at some point, get around to watching all of Aronofsky's catalogue.
You know what?
Except maybe Noah. I don't really think even he can make me like Bible stories, I don't
couldn't
think.
give a shit about Bible stories.
Yeah.
I know that
Russell
Noah
Crowe.
was... I know.
Russell Crowe was Noah. But yeah, I really want to see Aronofsky's new film, The Whale.
Oh, that's... I didn't realise that was him. I know it's Brendan Fraser.
Yeah,
Oh,
Aronofsky.
Wow. Aronofsky seems to make a lot of really interesting character studies. That seems to be his...
Yeah,
you know what? Maybe knowing it's Aronofsky, I might watch Noah. Only because it's an Aronofsky.
Yeah, I kind of want to... I'm thinking of watching all of his films, because he hasn't got that many. Requiem for a Dream is supposed to be good.
I need to watch that. That's meant to be amazing.
So the one he's got that's controversial, that did not do well at all. I think it lost money. And I've literally heard some people tell me it's brilliant, and some people tell me it's utter pretentious garbage, is he did one with Hugh Jackman in it called The Fountain.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'd like to see that. Well, that's all there is to say, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please do like, share, subscribe, etc., etc. It really helps us to get that algorithm to recommend us to people, and then we can grow the show. You can also check out our other movie review podcast, VGMP, the Video Game Movie Podcast, where we release episodes every Saturday on all good podcasting apps. That's got a slightly more comedic bent to it, but it is, again, Rory and myself reviewing movies. This time it's specifically movies based on video games. You can also catch Haunted, the audio drama, our audio drama series that currently has two completed seasons out there, and we are currently working on a third. That's available on all good podcasting apps as well. Simply search Haunted, the audio drama, and that's sort of an X-Files meets Doctor Who long-running story type thing. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll catch you on the next Second Take Cinema.